Okay. So we are in the chapter of Universal Teacher. Did anyone get a chance to take a look at the chapter? This one's also a very good chapter.
Yes.
Any comments or reflections from last week's or things that stood out or you wanted to bring up before we launched in? No, we're good to go. Hey, has anyone been in touch with Ami? Usually she's here, but she hasn't been here the last couple of weeks.
Wasn't she here last week? No?
I think she wasn't here last week either, or maybe came towards the end.
Or was she there at the Titan Zoom? Is that where I'm seeing her face? With Deva, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, she was there. But anyways, no, it's fine. I just wanted to see if anyone else had been in touch with her. So, all right. So I'm just going to share my screen and we will get started. How is Rita and Gabrielle?
Yeah, good morning. Yes.
Morning.
Doing well. It's a little bit harder to get out of bed this morning, so it's all good.
All right. Gabrielle, you're doing okay?
I'm doing okay, yes.
Good, good. All right. Okay, we will just start with our invocation. Om Gyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangu Langete Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Vanchakalpatrubhisha Kripasunda Evacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, thank you very much for joining us, offering always respects to the teachers that have come before us and offering respects to all those that have joined us and are present here today. We're full of compassion for all living beings, so thank you. So today is a very interesting chapter, and we're going to be talking about basically the universal teacher and how this word, we've all heard this word guru, but maybe we don't know what the word in fact maybe means. But when we break it down, we see that the word gu means darkness and the word ru means illumination. So basically the definition of guru is therefore someone who dispels the darkness of illusion with the light of transformative wisdom. So that's, and that's right out of the book. That's not for me, but that's how a guru is. I mean, you could think of it as a definition for a guru. I've known this word for a long time, but before reading the book a few years ago, I didn't actually know the etymology of the components of that word. So I was really, I learned a lot from that too. And so the first kind of, the book talks about three types of gurus in our life. And we have, in one sense, we have people, the word gets sometimes transferred over or kind of cinemized with mentor or teacher. So those are other words commonly that we use for this term guru, but very specific, Simon's being very specific now and saying that the kind of the qualification of a guru is one who really comes to dispel darkness. It's not just, and gives, this transformative wisdom. So it's not just any information that's being just given out here. And so the book specifically breaks down guru into three different types, right? So we have the inner guide, right? That I think most people can identify with having that inner voice, that's usually the word that it gets referenced to. The other words that the book will use in Sanskrit, the word is sometimes it's used as that kind of inner voice. You may have heard that term. The other specific Sanskrit terms are paramatmas. Paramatma means the super soul. So that's basically, it's understood that we're all divine. We all have divinity within us, right? And so that's that divine spirit that's within us, paramatma, or the super soul. That is in fact basically a living entity that can guide us and talk to us when we can access it, right? It's not accessing it is not always so easy, but that inner voice is there. And that's really a big part of why meditation's there. Meditation's there to be able for us to calm the mind, to be able to kind of pierce and get through the mind so that we can access that inner guide, that inner voice, and that inner teacher. So that's the first type of guru that the book discusses. The second type of way that the guru manifests is in the form of a mentor, right? And so I think most people can easily identify with the mentor. And most of us, I always say, we have mentors in all aspects of our lives, pretty much from the moment we were born, starting with our parents. And then we have different teachers that we learn, whether it be instruments or sports, or we all have kind of either mentors or coaches. And I really liked this, this analogy or at least the example they gave. Does everyone know who Itzhak Perlman is? Yeah, Enver, do you know anything about him?
I visited his concert. He's a marvelous violin player.
Yeah. For those of you that haven't heard, just type in the name a little bit later. And it's quite his music is quite incredible. Now, I'm sure that people haven't heard this story, but this also goes to speak to, being able to recognize a mentor as well, or a great person. So there's this Itzhak Perlman, there's a story where one day, he's one of the most famous violinists in the world. And he has a violin, I think it's in the violin that's worth millions of dollars. And when he performs, as Enver said, usually his shows are sold out and he charges hundreds of dollars, right? So he did an experiment one day where he went down, one day he basically went onto the, I think it was in New York, he went to the subway station, the streets of New York. And most people know in New York in the subway station, Paul is nodding like he knows what the story is going to be about, right? Yeah. So he goes onto the subway station and he basically just puts on normal clothes. He opens his violin box and he just starts playing, right? For just the common, as we speak, Ami. Hey, Ami. Okay. Maybe she'll try a second. So, Ami, we're just talking about the three different types of ways the book describes the guru. And the guru, again, was defined in the book as one who comes to dispel ignorance or darkness with the illumination of transformative wisdom. And I'm just telling them story. The book talks about Itzhak Perlman. He's a famous violinist. So he has sold out concerts, is one of the best violinist, if not the best in the world. And so he goes down to the New York subway station the next day after his sold out concert. And I think in about a span of a few hours, people throw the value of like $30 in his violin. And he's still playing the exact same music that he did the day before, right? So the story basically exemplifies that one day he's in a sold out concert, and the second day, he's just in the subway station performing the same exact music. He just basically puts on street clothes and no one really recognizes him, right? And so it's also there's the teacher that may present himself, but we as individuals also should be we could also miss when the teacher comes to in front of us, or the mentor comes in front of us, because we're not, either we're not aware, we don't know what to look for, or it's just not fitting the right description of what we feel, how the teacher appears. So I thought it's a very enlightening story, and kind of speaks to, at least trying to look beyond the surface, but also knowing what to look for. And we'll also get into that a little bit too today. So I wanted to share that story. And then the third teacher that is discussed is the environment, right? And so we're gonna read the story that kind of displays this. But the environment, we learn so much about life from nature, right? And we'll go into a couple of specific sections. But I was just listening to a story from a mentor that I listen to often, and he's talking about, has anyone heard the story of the Chinese bamboo tree? No? So this is a really nice story. And this is really on, everyone will relate to this, because I think most people on this call have kids. But there's this Chinese bamboo tree, and you water it. When you water it every day. And in the first year, you water it every single day, and nothing happens to this tree. Like absolutely nothing happens in the first year. And in the second year, you water it and nothing happens. And the third year, nothing happens. And the fourth year, nothing happens. And even in the fifth year, finally in the fifth year, what happens is this tree grows 90 feet in 1 year, right? And so again, it just speaks to in so many ways in life, that in so many different things, we have to invest time, energy, and effort, but we don't always see the results right away. And the simplest example for this, I see it every day at work, is children, right? The children we raise, where we don't there's so many years of just giving, love and care and, guidance and input, and, supporting them through all their endeavors. And, we may not necessarily, hopefully we're still getting something back in of value in the process. But I'm just, the example is that we invest so much, but again, necessarily the fruits of the tree don't always, fructify right away. And that this story of the Chinese bamboo tree is really one of not only resilience, but of one of determination, and just that we must, keep sometimes doing the same thing for a long time to be able to see a result and not to be discouraged. So, that's just one example of the Chinese bamboo tree that provides us that lesson of determination, consistency, and of being patient for whatever we're striving for. So those are just kind of three. Does anyone else have any examples of, I'm sure other people have examples of nature that they have.
I actually have a question on the Chinese bamboo tree story, Ricken.
Sorry?
I have a question about the Chinese bamboo tree story.
Sure.
Can you send it to us as a story, or is there anywhere we can access it?
Oh yeah. This story is very, it's definitely, I can send the story.
Great, thank you. You're frozen on my screen, by the way.
Okay, let me see.
Thank you. That'd be great.
We have similar trees in Anatolia, also in Cyprus, where Ida is coming from. Olive trees, they are needing 7 years to give the first fruits, and also pistachio trees. So it is also said for them, you have to need patience and until it's getting, you can get the fruits of it.
How long, do you know how long it is, Enver, for a pistachio tree? I've never heard of that before.
Both olive and pistachio tree, 7 years.
7 years.
After 7 years, you can get the first fruits.
Okay, thank you.
That's interesting because number 7 is a number of perfection. So there we go. And completion.
Definitely. Anybody else have any other examples of lessons from nature? Or where nature can be their teacher? So, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, trees is like a whole, you know, we could have a whole discussion on trees, but, you know, one of the other, Gabrielle, what's the lesson from walnuts? I'll share another one about the tree later, but.
The walnut, it's just a walnut tree. It's in Germany. So I just want to put in an example from here. It also needs a couple of years until you will have nuts. But for me, also it's very, very interesting that the walnut tree makes very, very, very strong roots. It can even damage a house, so strong are getting the roots. And I think this is also a very interesting spiritual allegory, or sometimes I'm not in English. But it's important, I think, to think about it, because the nature it's for me, it's always the nature is it's an amazing example, because we are always so much in the head, especially me, always thinking. But by observing these examples in nature with stories, that helps me a lot to get deeper, to get it in an emotional way, because the nature is so quiet and patient. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Someone made the comment of the water, the sea. Yeah, just the sea. Did you have a specific quality or something you wanted to exemplify with the water or sea?
For me, it's impermanence, because the water is constantly shifting in the sand. So when the waves come up, that's what I think of, is that impermanence is how it shifts. And then of course, if you're in a stream with water and you see the rocks, you see how the rocks are there and the water just goes around them. So the water is just, it just flows in perpetuity. You know, it doesn't matter the obstacles in its way, that it'll just continue to flow. So water for me, it's the ultimate in terms of what nature does. Yeah.
One of the other analogies with water, or just bodies of water, but specifically the ocean, is that it, it has, at different times of the year, it goes through, we know that waters will flood, and, there will be times of the year where it's, even drying up. But the ocean is such a water where that regardless of what's happening the year, it's always adjusting and adapting to the environment, right? And so again, that quality of you don't see, oceans will kind of go up and they'll be calm, but an ocean's never drying out, right? Or an ocean's never, just kind of totally overflowing. It's constantly adjusting or adapting. That quality of whatever's coming its way, it's continuously adjusting or adapting to the environment. And that's one of the qualities also of the ocean, is that it's that continuous adaptability. So we're going to go ahead, and I just wanted to read this story from the section of the environment, and it's a really great one. So I'm going to go ahead, and so their story is so Simon's teacher told him a story of a powerful king named Yadu. This is for those that have the book, we're at the bottom of 197, who met a young and effulgent Brahmin while traveling through his kingdom. The king approached the Brahmin and said, "Dear Brahmin, although all people within this world are burning in the great forest fire of desire and greed, I see that you remain free and are not burned by that fire. You are just like a mighty elephant who takes refuge from blazing forest fire by standing in the cooling waters of the Ganges. Please tell me how you became enlightened so I may learn from you." The Brahmin replied, "I have learned from 24 different gurus. They include the earth, wind, ocean, honey, thief, hawk, and arrow maker. By taking their lessons to heart, I have attained complete freedom from suffering. The Brahmin then explained to King Yadu what he had learned from each of his teachers. I observed that earth provides everyone's needs, he said. Even when humans plunder her resources, turn her lush forest into wasteland, and soak her service with blood in the most savage of wars, from the earth I therefore learned the quality of tolerance. Similarly, the trees of the earth give their bark, roots, fruits, leaves, wood, and shade without any expectation of return. This taught me the quality of dedication to others. It taught me to make the welfare of others the sole reason for my existence. The Brahmin continued, the wind travels everywhere, sometimes passing through a waterfall, a fragrant sandalwood, forest, or a crematorium. The wind crosses through dark and forbidding places, yet remains unafraid. It carries the aromas of different locations, but remains unentangled and undisturbed. From the wind, I therefore learned that while we may find ourselves in challenging and troubled situations in life, we remain fearless and undisturbed, thereby transcending good and bad. From the ocean, I learned that whatever life brings our way, we should remain undiminished in who we are. During the rainy season, the rivers rushing to the sea are overflowing. During the summer, they dry up, but the ocean always remains unmoved and inexhaustible. Similarly, a wise person is never shaken even in the midst of greatest difficulties. She remains at peace whether she meets with success or failure. This is because she does not seek her identity in these things. Therefore, they do not define her. The Brahmin continued, one day I happened to see a person in the forest breaking open a beehive to collect all the honey that the countless bees have spent their entire lives producing. From this, I learned about the dangers and futility of the needless accumulation of capital, which simply creates greed, danger, and fear. Humans can be like bees who struggle to produce a large quantity of honey, which is then stolen by a powerful capitalist for his own enjoyment or benefit. If our wealth is not lost during our life, death will in the end surely take everything from us. Therefore, I concluded that I should not make the amassing of capital an end in its own right. Rather, the primary purpose of wealth is to help others. One day I observed a group of large hawks in flight, unable to find any prey. The hawks suddenly combined together to attack a weaker hawk that was holding some meat. The weaker hawk dodged this way and that to save itself. At last, the weaker hawk, in its life in peril, gave up meat it was holding onto. And at that moment, it was freed from misery. Seeing this, I understood that humans form deep attachment to objects, outcomes, which they believe will make them happy. But these attachments are actually a source of suffering. As soon as we relinquish our possessiveness and attachment, we at once become liberated from suffering. Another time observed an arrow maker at work. Suddenly drums, trumpets, and other musical instruments could be heard as a large procession approached. Despite all the commotion, the arrow maker was so absorbed in his work that he did not even notice the king, who passed right next to him. This filled me with wonder. Most of us, I thought, are continually distracted by daily commotion of life. We are filled with thoughts and about the past and dreams about the future, so that we are rarely fully present to what we are doing. If we could live with presence, how our life would be transformed. In this way, I learned from 24 different teachers. I took their teachings to heart and began applying them in my own life. This is how I gained enlightenment. Hearing this, King Yadu accepted this effulgent and fearless Brahmin as his guru. The king developed the same qualities as the Brahmin and began ruling his vast kingdom as a philosopher king. Any?
Very nice. Thank you, Rikan. Very nice.
Yeah, it's a really powerful story. I mean, just multiple things. Each one of those things is like, oh, it's like a strong punch to the stomach. So one
of the things I like so much is the stories. And we know that these traditions were for so many years. It was just spoken. And it's the stories that we remember, like the honey story or the arrow maker, because if you tell that in other context, you don't get it and you don't remember it. And that's the greatest thing about stories. Wow.
Yeah. Really powerful. Really, I mean, there's such great lessons. And I'm sure you know, but the reason why stories exist is that it gives you the medicine in a way that's much more palatable, right? Gabrielle?
Yeah, for me, I love all the stories and lots of different stories, but I think the last sentence you said, for me, they're the most important, that we are not related to the outcome of our actions. I think for me, this is the really most important thing, what frees us in life. If we can act and whatever we do, and we do it in love and not for the outcome. I think for me, this is the absolutely highest freedom of all. Yeah, I think I just want to say that or point this out from the stories that you said it at. They came, these other stories, they're also very, very nice, but the last one was the crown for me. Yeah, we can, I would call it ultimative random for everything.
Ultimative
random. No, wait, sometimes ultimative, let's say medicine, ultimative medicine. Yeah, remedy was the word I was looking for.
Remedy.
You know, sometimes I so, you know, I never speak in English, so I always first have to change my brainwaves. But it's funny when I say random, because actually we also can say there is no random, but if we do everything in love, all is sort of random, because it's not important. You know what I mean? It's if we do all in love, we don't have to think so much, because we just do it in love. So I also love the word nonsense, because children doing nonsense, and it doesn't have to make sense. It's just for love and pleasure. Yeah. And I apologize, and I thank everybody if I'm mostly out of the video, because sometimes in between the dogs are barking or my daughter is running through, I have to pick up from school. So I apologize. I'm really, when I'm in the call, I'm there with my heart. I think that's most important. And thank you because I don't want to distract other people when I'm running and it's ringing on the door or the dogs are barking. So I know it would distract if you see it in the camera. This is why I'm doing it, just to excuse myself for this.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
And as Gabrielle was talking, what came to mind was sometimes when I'm trying to decide what to do, because Gabrielle was talking about love, what comes to mind to me is I ask myself the question, you know, what would love do now? And then that really helps guide my next action, just in terms of what would love do now, as opposed to ego or anything else. And that helps me move forward with my next step sometimes.
And I'm sure it's not always sometimes it may be totally contrary to what we'd want to do, right?
Yeah, oftentimes sometimes I'll ask that question and I'll sit in quiet meditation. You know, the next step will come to mind. It's like, really? No, it's like, okay. So but then I'll sit with it. And it's like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And I can be a bigger person. Like, so yeah, sometimes it is really interesting what comes to mind when you put things aside. And then when I do it, it's like, wow, there's this calmness and peaceness that, yeah, it's like, doesn't really matter, whatever, but just as long as kind of you move forward with that love, and what would love do now as the next action? It helps me sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm gonna put that away in the bank for sure, especially when we sit in meditation, because it requires a little bit of just the mind being calm and having some clarity. So the next session I just wanted to move into was the next session where he talks about the environment is always friendly. And this is specifically in the perspective of facing difficulties or challenges, right? And so he quotes William Shakespeare, and he says, "Sweet are the uses of adversity, which, like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in his head." And I was reminded, I even wrote the quote for C.S. Lewis. He has a wonderful, I mean, for those of you that haven't read any of C.S. Lewis, he's quite a seeker and really powerful philosopher as well. But he has this quote, and he says, in God's economy, even suffering is not wasted. And to me, that really, it kind of tells you that there's no experience in life that we can't learn from or grow from. It's just really our perspective, right? And so then Simon goes on, he says that in every challenge or difficulty, there lies a hidden jewel for us to find and keep. Most of us see only the outer form of the circumstance and never look for that hidden jewel. We are simply unable to see it because it lies in a direction we often don't look within. The things that are hardest to find or reach are not those that are furthest from us, but those that are closest to us. It requires inward-looking introspection. Inward-looking introspection to recognize the opportunities for inner freedom and growth that exist even in the challenges in our life. Life's most important lessons require that we ourselves set out on an inner journey. There's no shortcut. As Marcel Proust wrote, "We do not receive wisdom, we must discover it for ourselves. After a journey through the wilderness, which no one else can make for us, which no one can spare us, for our wisdom is the point of view from which we come at last to regard the world." So I just wanted to share kind of the reflection exercise that I was hoping we could all take up. And it was this question here. It's not this one. So it's really just trying to take a difficult situation that we've had in our life, and I think one retrospectively will be a little bit easier, but just to kind of get the gears turning, can you identify a hidden jewel in a previously challenging or difficult situation? So that's kind of part A. And after a couple minutes, maybe you can explore, it's to see if there's a hidden jewel in a current challenge or difficulty that we are in. So I won't do the breakout rooms. We can just take a couple minutes to meditate on that. To kind of push us in that spirit of trying to see the jewel in previous or current situations that we're in.
Hi, Rican. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Were we in the same room, or was it a connection?
No, we're all in the same room.
Okay.
All right, we will. I know this is, again, this is maybe a probing question that could probably require a whole day of reflection, but it's one that I just wanted to put out there for everyone, just to get the ball rolling, because I really do think that taking some of the lessons here and just trying to reflect on it in our own life is really where we can kind of gain a lot of the jewels in the information. So I just wanted to put that question out there. Gabrielle?
Sorry. I'm really a person who loves universal remedies. And I agree with you that we could talk the whole day about it. But for me, a universal thought to this question is that, of course, we should all love ourselves, because we are the masters of our lives and we created our lives. And if I love my life, I should be thankful for every situation I ever had in my life, because every situation in my life made me the person I am now. So I think every situation, there is not one or this or that difficult situation. Every situation in my life, no matter which situation, made me exactly who I am. So I think every situation in our life, every situation is to know myself better, because every situation can help me to understand myself, because it reflects something of my feelings and my thoughts. So to find out about myself, I need other people to reflect something on me. That doesn't mean exactly that they reflect my character, but if they reflect something to me, and I always ask the question, what is the information for me in this situation? Not thinking about the other person, thinking about myself. And this is not ego. This is about finding our love barriers, where the flow of love is blocked. And this sometimes is because our hidden beliefs we have from ancestors or living parents. It's just it's an information in ourselves, and we have to detect this information. And to detect this information in ourselves, we have to ask ourselves, we can ask ourselves in every situation with another person, what is the information for me in this situation? So for me, there is no difficult situation. There are always possibilities to find blockings of love and put them away and let the love flow totally 100%, even in the most difficult situation you can have in your life. And I'm not talking in theory. I am talking out of practice. This is what I want to say.
Thank you.
You're my
Gabrielle.
inspiration, Gabby. Gabrielle, you're my inspiration.
Thank you. I hope, you know, this is what I'm living for. I really live for love, for being an example, because as you know, Ida, in my childhood there was no safe place at all. So I was looking for examples everywhere, and what I love to do is our children, especially in the world, in the moment with this worldwide crazy situation, the children need examples of people they are able to stay in every situation in trust, in confidence, of love, and in a consciousness of that we are all one, that we are all one body, the body of Mother Earth. And when I am meditating or contemplating, I am a mother, so I know. I try to express the Mother Earth feeling, as Riken said in the story before. Mother Earth is just giving. She's giving and just giving and not expecting anything. I don't say it's an easy way. I would never say to anybody it's an easy way. It would
Not
be
easy.
totally lie. But it's worth it. I know what I'm talking about. It's worth it.
And because so you know, guys, Gabrielle's shared quite a bit about her life experience from her childhood, and that's why I say she's such an inspiration, because she is the symbol and the radiation of forgiveness and love. And if you ever have an opportunity to speak to her one-on-one, and I invite you to connect with her, because when you hear her story and you reflect on your own life, you know, with the challenges that you may be going through, Gabrielle, again, you're an inspiration. And, you know, every time I hear you speak, knowing from the place that you've come from and the place that you continue to come, and there's such authenticity, there's so much, you're just so authentic, so genuine, so pure, that yeah, I'm grateful that you are in our world family and in this Dharma code, and you continually share your love and your wisdom. So thank you.
And I thank everybody in the group for the presence, because I can feel it's also a win-win, because I really love the energy and the effort Riken and Ida and Tiffany and Rita and Amy and Enver and Paul and usually Corey and Rena and all the people there in this group. It's a source of love for me also, because, you know, we say, probably all over the world, they say that sometimes where a prophet is born, there is no honor in the own community at all, because the own family or the own community, they always think they know you. They are not thinking about you from a new perspective. It's they think they know you. So I'm very grateful and thankful for everybody in this call, because I get love out of you, and I would be like in the desert. I would really dry out if I wouldn't have you, Ida, to appreciate what I'm saying, because in I'm sorry, I need to block and I need to get and go my daughter, but I will listen to you.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for sharing.
So I am sorry, but I have to leave as well.
That's okay.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
just the last part of the chapter that I wanted to get into, but we'll save it for next week because it'll connect into that. Is just this idea of having a mentor or a guide in our spiritual journey, and you know what
You're
that.
frozen.
Sorry.
Oh, you froze. You're back. It's okay. You were frozen there.
Okay. No, just the last part we'll get into next week is just talking about, you know, having a guide or a mentor in our spiritual journey. You know, what is that? You know, what does that look like? What should we look for if we're ever looking one day? It's a little bit not related to, it's in the book, but it's not exactly spelled out, but we're just gonna, you know, a couple of qualities that we should be looking for future mentors and guides that we run into. So we'll talk about that. And yeah, just you can reflect on during the week where we have so many teachers in our lives in different respects. I feel like when I look out at the world, sometimes everybody usually wants to just, you know, usually they themselves, their mind and their own kind of, you know, usually they connect with themselves to be their own guide and teacher. But I just wanted to open up, this book kind of opens up the idea about having a mentor or a guru in one's own journey. And just wanted to put that out there as an idea to explore for everybody else in the group. So we'll wrap that part up next week. And for anybody who wants to stay, we'll go ahead and chant together. And then we will also start next Monday at 6:30. I'll make an announcement in the group for anybody else that wants to join us. I think on Mondays, we'll probably keep it to, you know, like 20 minutes, half an hour. It won't be that long, but it'll be an opportunity for people to come together and for us to practice together.
Thank you, Ricken. I have to leave.